Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Chaf Daled. No, is it Chaf Daled?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we pick up at. No, it isn't.
No, Chaf Hey.
Chaf Hey. I'm sorry. Today's daf is Chaf Hey. Okay, we pick up at the bottom of Chaf Daled Mazet, and basically the Mishnah told us the principle that Nidre Havad. So let's remember we have 4 categories of Nedarim that are not binding, and the basic reason is that even though the word you said was the right word, it wasn't what you wanted to do. So the first case is Nidre Zruzin. Hey, Charlie, welcome back.
Thank you.
The first case is Nidre Zruzin, where you're trying to just like encourage, incentivize somebody to do something, but you never really you never really meant it when you said that you would vow if so and so would happen or wouldn't happen or whatever. It was just a way of speaking or a way of trying to maybe the other person. In one case, the other person knew you weren't serious, like the haggling case. In the other case, maybe the person thought you were serious, but at the end of the day, you weren't serious. You were just trying to get them to, come over for dinner or something. So you checked it. So you never really would have wanted it to be binding. That was the case of the Nidre Zruzin. Now we move on to the Nidre Havai. Nidre Havai are cases where you basically also don't want to vow. You're doing it, you're saying this should be usher, not because you're trying to like back up a statement and try to give like weight to what you're saying, but not because you ever really wanted to ever be usher. So the case in the Mishnah were 2 cases. One case was where you said, like, if I didn't see like as many people as those that left people. Now there, the Ron wants to say that that's really a guzma, and the real that's not binding is because actually it was true. As such, it's not really a category of Nidre Havai. It's really just telling you that we don't translate guzmas literally. But let's actually bracket the Ron's explanation, which is interesting, but it's a distracting, and just focus on the fact that let's assume it is false. Or let's certainly take the second case where it isn't a guzma, where it actually you're saying a false statement. Okay, the snake was so big it was like as big as a beam used for like the wine press, or say the olive press. It's not just so. So that's a case where both of them are cases where basically you're saying something, you're telling what's it called, a fish story. So you're telling a fish story. You want to say something about that, Charlie? Well, let me just.
I said that immediately after coming back from the Bronx Zoo and seeing their anaconda.
Oh, that it was as big as a beam for whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll see.
They really are that big.
Okay, well, the Gemara is going to ask the question.
Oh, really? Okay. They wouldn't have known about it.
Anyway, so you're just telling a tall tale. And the same way when people tell a tall tale, they like to just keep on embellishing and elaborating. You also want to the context of this tall tale, which maybe nobody really thinks is true. You want to just emphasize, but you're giving it emphasis. So you're saying, if this didn't happen, let all the pages of Olam Asra. Okay, so anyway, that's the case. The reason that's a Nidre Havai is because you never really want the thing to be forbidden. You're just using the neder as a way to back up your statement, but your statement is patently false, and you never really would have wanted the thing to be forbidden. Okay, so in the case of Nidre Zruzin, everybody knows you're not serious, or at least you're clear, even if the other person doesn't know you're not serious. Bottom line is you're not serious because you're using it to incentivize the person to do something. And in this case, everybody knows what you're saying is false, and you're using it as a way of backing up your statement, but never because you really want it to be. All right? And so those are so far the 2 cases. Now, the Gemara, maybe we'll just do this again quickly because we ran through it yesterday. Let's take the Gemara at the beginning here. So let's start from the Gemara at the beginning of Chasalam. Nidre Havai Mutarim. Shvuas Havai Asur. Now, our gear says Shvuas Havai Asur. There's another gear which is Kishem Nidre Havai Mutarim, Kach Shvuas Havai Mutarim. Right? Now, it's important to distinguish. It seems to be a slightly different statement, right? Whether it's Asur or Mutar. It's important to distinguish between whether the Shvua itself is forbidden to take the Shvua because it's a Shvuas Shav, or whether if you say the Shvua will make something Asur, whether the things become Asur or not. So let's read what the Gemara says. What would be the case of a Shvuas Havai? Remember, Neder Havai is a Neder coming to back up a patently false statement. Okay, so what would be a Shvuas Havai? So, a Shvua, if I didn't see, as many Jews as like Yotzei Mitzrayim, that doesn't mean them. What are you saying? You're not saying anything. It's just a nonsensical statement. You could say a shvua that I didn't see, okay, but if doesn't make sense. So Amar Rabbi says fine. The Amar shvua already fine. You say shvua that I saw so many Jews, which is essentially the same point. And neder, this will be usher if I didn't see. The translation of that to a shvua is a shvua that I did see, right? A neder, let this be usher if I didn't see a snake this big. The translation to a shvua is a shvua that I did see a snake this big. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, so anyway, that's a direct translation, and that's using a shvua to back up your statement. Now, in that type of a case, that would be a shvus shav, right? That's a classic shvus shav. A shvus there if I'm actually deceiving you. If I say I went to the store yesterday, I didn't, that's a shvus sheker. If I say I saw a snake as big as a house, and everybody knows that's not true, that's a shvus shav. Okay, so it's sheker, but because it's obviously false, it's a shav. Okay, so that type of a case would be a shvus shav, would be usher to make, but it wouldn't be a question of whether an object becomes forbidden or not. But that's the way I say it. According to that read, presumably you would have it would be shvus shavai asurin. It's usher to take such a shvua. That would be a shvus shav. Okay. I'm only Rabbi, so Rabbi said to him, "In Cain, Ramali the Maimer. Why do you have to say that? Like, what, that's obviously a shvus shav, and we know that's usher. That's a mission. I showed you the mission yesterday in Shvuas. Do me a generic time. It has to be analogous to another. Not just that you're using it to back up a statement, but that's about whether an object becomes forbidden or not. So El Amar Rabba, so Rabba says, but Omer, so here's the case that's really analogous. You're using it to back up your statement, and it's about making an object forbidden. So what would be the case? The Omer, through payro to Olam alai, b'shvua, in lo ra'itu b'der chazek olim mitzvayim. So what you say is mamish analogous. So the same way you say, if I didn't see as many Jews as went out of Egypt, if I didn't see a snake as big as a skyscraper, then konam this food alive. That's the neder case. So you're using a neder to back it up. In case of using a shvua to back it up, because I didn't see a snake as big as a skyscraper, shvua that I won't eat this food. If I did not, if I did not see a snake as big as, so it's the same effect, making the food forbidden. Because it's forbidden through a neder, it's forbidden through a shvua. Okay. But you're using the claim that you're making as the t'nai. All right, t'nai. If this isn't true, let this be happening. Now, why is that a shvus havai? It might be a shvus shav, meaning, and here's where the issue of mutarim or asurim comes in. What the Rab says, it's usher to take such a shvua, because that's a shvus shav. There's no point to that. Everybody knows what you're saying is false. So you're taking a shvua, to back up a false statement, and everybody knows that statement is false. That's a shvus shav. And the food is never going to be forbidden to you, because it would only be forbidden if it's true, and it's not true, etc. So that's a shvus shav. It was usher to take such a statement. Is the food forbidden? Okay? And the food is not forbidden. Why is the food not forbidden? You say, sure, I won't eat the food if this didn't happen, and it didn't happen, so you should be bound by the shvua. Well, because it's clear you never wanted that food to be forbidden. We're only using it as a way of backing up that statement. So since you never wanted, the same way by the neder, you never wanted it to be forbidden. So here too, it's not really, I want the food to be forbidden, given if this clearly isn't true. I really don't want the food to be forbidden. I'm just using it to back. So because I'm using it to back up a false statement, it's a shvus shav, and I get lashes for shvus shav. But because it's not about making the food, not allowing me to eat the food, it's not binding in terms of whether I can eat the food or not. Yeah.
He said nothing in the meaning, as if he said nothing. Why is it like we're saying?
No, when he said nothing means the sentence is nonsensical. I went the most line before that nothing. That was when I said shavua if I didn't go to the store. Shavua if I didn't go to the store. Grammatically, it doesn't make sense. That's when the Gemara was saying that doesn't make sense. Here it does make sense. Sure, this will be usher if. So we know what you're trying to do. But ultimately, since you're not really trying to make the food forbidden, the food doesn't become forbidden. What you're really doing is backing up your statement. So backing up your statement with neder doesn't do anything but no harm, no foul. Backing up a patently false statement with shvua is shvua. Okay, yeah.
For taking God's name in vain?
Would you get lashes for shvua shav?
But no, but is it because you've actually said God's name in vain? Even if you didn't say God's name?
No.
If I say shvua, not having said
Okay,
God's name,
so that's a good question.
shvua b'shem Hashem.
I know. So we're not learning the Masechet Shvuas and the centrality of Shem Hashem and Shvua. If you don't use Shem Hashem, to what degree is it the same? Is it Malchus or not? Whatever. That's Malchus.
That's what I was going to ask.
Okay, so that's an important question. How central is Shem Hashem and Shvua? Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Okay, so now we got it. Okay, and the same logic again. The extra layer by shvua is you would get malchus even if it's not binding, or dafka because it's not binding, right? Think about the case a person says like shvua I won't sit in a sukkah, or shvua I won't sleep for 3 days. In all those cases, we say it's not binding. You sit in the sukkah and sleep immediately, but it's a shvua shav, right? Because it's exactly the flip side of the coin. Because it's not binding, because it doesn't function as a shvua, right? Then it was purposeless. Okay, so here too, because it's not binding, it's really not about making the food forbidden. It's really about backing up a statement, and that statement is a patently false statement. It's a purposeless shvua, but the food is permissible.
Yes. Is this shvua shav?
Well, yes, but meaning shvua havai mutarim is looking at whether it makes if your gear says shvua havai mutarot, it's looking at whether it makes the food forbidden, and then no, the food remains permissible.
Mutarot means the food.
Right, that's why. Well, that's why there's two gears here, whether it's mutarot or asurin, because of the shift of are you looking at the food, or are you looking at taking the shua? So if you look at taking, so shua havai could eat also falls into the category of shua shav. So it's us to take the shua havai and you get malchus for shua havai because it's a shua shav, but the thing you were making forbidden is not forbidden. Okay, so now Amalei Ravina. So Ravina said Ravashi, Yoma maybe. Hi Gavra, Kina Deshum Shami Deshumash Deshum. I'm sorry, Shum Shamani. Is that it? Shum Shamani. Anyway, Chaza. Maybe this guy saw an ant. The Asik Lahon Shema Oli Mitzrayim, and he basically called them Oli Mitzrayim. So I saw as many Jews as Oli Mitzrayim. What are Oli Mitzrayim? Oli Mitzrayim is my nickname for my little anthill at home, and I have 40 ants there, and I saw 40 Jews. So I said I saw as many Jews as I have ants in my anthill, as I have Oli Mitzrayim. Yeah. Well, oh yeah, exactly. Oh well, I think he might have even given this as an example. Anyway, okay. The Shabbat and Shabbat, and maybe it's a good food. Therefore, maybe the food is forbidden. I think we're back to Konam. That's what Konam. This loaf of bread is forbidden. If I didn't see as many Jews as Ole Mitzrayim, what I meant by Ole Mitzrayim was I meant my anthill. Okay, so I saw it.
The number of Jews.
No, I just call my anthill Ole Mitzrayim.
But why would
that's my nickname for my anthill? I don't know. You ever know people call their dogs like I don't know a king? I don't know why they call their dogs king, right? I saw this guy. He was as tall as the king. I meant king. I meant my dog at home. His name is King. Okay. Anyway, I meant my anthill at home. His name is Ole Mitzrayim. All right. So that's how many Jews I saw. The number of ants I have in my anthill. I'm going to lay. So why don't we say the difference is binding? Now this, by the way, if you think about it, is sort of like the reverse of Perusha Lahakel. This would be a case of like Perusha Lahachmir, right? You take a sentence, which everybody assumes means a certain thing, like and then you say, no, by Cherem I meant Chermo Yam. By when my ex is usher, you didn't mean myself, you mean my little bone that I have at home. So here you're saying the same thing, Lahachmir, right? Ole Mitzrayim means my anthill called Ole Mitzrayim, and therefore really was binding, and therefore this thing really is out there. So in a way, it's an interesting lesson. We would sort of say Perusha Lahachmir. Okay, but let's see how the Gemara frames it. Okay, because it does to me it seems that the following conversation is very similar to the question about who gets to interpret what you said. Okay, so actually as this is continuing, it's going to look like it's actually focusing on the shvua aspect, not the neder aspect. But okay, the same type of thing. A shvua that I didn't see this. So why don't we say that maybe so now maybe we understand the question. Maybe here you are because you are trying to be mako. If you said a shvua that I didn't see as many ants as Ole Mitzrayim, we just got through saying that would be or a shvua that would be elsewhere. We just got through saying it would be a shvua shav, and we give you malchus, we give you lashes because you're patently lying. So then you were about to give this guy lashes. How dare you take the name of God in vain and say that you saw Kol? No. I just meant as many ants as I have in my anthill. Okay, so now we at least understand why he wants to explain it. He's not trying to make the food forbidden. He's trying to get out of shvua shav. Okay, so that's what this guy is saying. I didn't make a shvua shav. I really meant the number of ants in my anthill. Why should we believe him or not? So I'm away. So he said back to him, Third takes an oath. It's not based on whatever nonsense is going through his head. It's based on what we are thinking. Meaning, it's a type of another way of saying, Dvarim Shabbalei Deinim Dvarim. You don't get to tell me that you have some crazy thought in your head and that's what it means. It means what we. Okay, now, it's an interesting question. Is this a difference between a shvu and a neder? Right, by a neder we said perusha lahakel. I could tell you, and I always say by a shvu, because you understand the difference, right? A neder is basically between me and God. It's about making an object forbidden and so on. A shvu usually is about, is about backing up your statements to other people. Right? You know what I'm saying? Why am I making a shvuah? Usually it's about, using God's name to back up a promise, commitment, of statement about the past. So it's maybe much less perush and lahakel. Maybe a shvuah, I have to go by how people will understand my statement. Right? So to me, it seems like this is in conversation with the earlier discussion of perush and lahakel. Perush and lahakel is by a neder. By a shvuah, we say, I don't care what you're thinking. It's a daita didan. It's what we think.
Language for communication.
Right.
It has to be the way we understand.
Excellent. Right. So, and that neder is less about communicating to others. Neder is about establishing the status of an object. Whereas shvuah, you could make a shvuah just between you and God. Shvuah that I'm going to, nobody's around. It's a way of promising and committing to do something without anybody. But yes, that's my point. Shvuah is much more between people, and making a promise to somebody, commitment to somebody, backing up your words about the past, and therefore it goes by what those words, are commonly understood to mean. You don't get to interpret it. So therefore, we're going to say, no, sorry, buddy, you made a shvuah. We're giving you malchus. By a neder, presumably perush lahakel. You could say something like that. Okay. So the Gemara says like this: Kika mishtava daiki didan mishtava. It's based on what we think you mean. Danan lo maskina nachi ashum shaman. Okay, and we don't think that those words are talking about an anthill.
No.
And that's a crazy interpretation. Okay, so Gemara says, now we get into this very important interpret question. Who gets to say what the shvuah means? And again, it's very similar to neder, perush and lahakel. Here, the phrase is not perusha. The phrase is adaita didan or adaita didei. It's based on what you're thinking. And, and again, using that phrase, adaita didan, adaita, is exactly the point that David was making. It emphasizes that shvuah is about communicating to other people. That shvuah, more than neder, is fundamentally oriented towards other people, and therefore you don't get to interpret it. Yes. About 1 minute. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's the next one. Yes. What do you want to say?
Just when it says in the phrase "lo maskein nafshi" means like the way we take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So it's like it's like when we would say in a normal masachet, whatever, asika daite, it goes up on my thoughts, meaning what I assume. So here it's maskin and nafshin, right? So but yeah, I myself it would occur to us. Okay, it wouldn't occur to us. You're talking about ants. Okay. The Gemara says, "Are you telling me people can't take an oath based on what they're thinking, meaning what they're thinking doesn't get to dictate, even if it's totally different than what we would think?" When they make a person take an oath and base it, okay, and he's basically he's really taking notes, not the stam out of the marketplace to another person, but that basically he's making a motive against us or something like that, and therefore we're telling him, I don't care whatever nonsense you have in your head, like you say, I had my fingers crossed or something like that. Right? You'll figure out something in your head so that technically you'll say you were telling the truth. Like well, it depends what the meaning of is, something like that. So that doesn't matter. What matters is what we understand the words you're about to say means. Okay. So right. They say to him, we're not, when we take an oath and you swear something, it doesn't matter whatever, sort of stipulation you're thinking in your head about what your words are going to mean. Because they are the basis. What we say it means, and what God says it means, is what normal people think your words mean. That's what your words are going to mean. Okay, so therefore you see that they say that in a shvuah based in. But that means that when it's not a shvuah based, when I'm out in the marketplace saying a shvuah to you, maybe I do get to say what it means. Because if the general rule were you never get to interpret what your shvuah means, then you don't have to spell that out in based, right? It sounds like it's special in based that they're making that clear. So the Gemara says like this: what are they coming to exclude? I mean, what normally would be good might work, but here it's not going to work. Maybe meaning maybe basically he gave over to the borrower, like little chips of wood. And then he says, oh, I paid him up all of the money. What did I mean? I gave him the $100 that I owed him. Okay, that's the shoe I'm going to take. I gave you the $100. And really, I didn't give you $100. I asked you to hold on to a bag of 100 chips of wood, but I happen to call those chips of wood dollars. Okay, so that would be the scenario. You don't get to say that.
You hope it's
Exactly. All right.
Well, it's not going to be ambiguous.
Anyway. So anyway, the point is, so in order to prevent that, we have to say it's being done al datenu. But would mean that in a normal case, you would get to say such a thing. Okay? The cover al datenu, since it says al datenu, michlau, the other than that if it weren't in based and you didn't say explicitly this is based on what we say, you would be able to give it an absurd interpretation like that. So don't you see that shows that normally you could give it your own interpretation? Says, no, that's not the case. That case never would work. Here's the case that would work, in a non-basic case. Lafuke, the following case. Mikanya de Rava, the staff of Rava. Who Gavra was a man, that he lent money to his friend. And the friend was presumably like, a motive and mixus. Okay, he had conceded that he borrowed $10, but he didn't, or whatever. He said he had paid back 10. I'm sorry. He said he had paid back whatever the case was. He said he had paid back 50, but he denied the other 50. Okay, this guy said, what was the case? Well, hold on. I say you paid back. I know everybody agrees the loan was 100. I say you paid back nothing, and you said you paid back 50. Okay, so you have to come to Basin to swear that you paid back 50. Mar says like this. Go pay him up. Pay up the other 50 that you owe him. I've already paid him up. The reason I'm saying that he only paid half is because that's the way you get a shvu of a motive mixas. The simple sense of this is that he's claiming he paid the whole thing. Okay, but anyway, one way or another he says I paid. Okay, go swear to him that you paid him up. Azio, so he went. He took a walking staff. And he had it hollowed out. And he put the $50 inside the hollow of the staff. So having stomach for Azio, and he was like limping and walking, or supporting himself in walking, the Asi and going. So he looked like, he made it feel like, oh, I'm sorry, I got a limp or whatever. That's why I'm walking with this staff. Stomach for Azio, but Asi, he came to the base. So then when he was about to make his oath, he said to the Malveh, here, hold on to this. Could you hold on to this staff for me for a second? I have to go take this oath. Okay? Nothing Sefer Torah. He took a Sefer Torah. And he took an oath that I paid you everything that I owed you. Okay, now
is that really true? If you say hold on to it, I'm not giving it to you.
Well, okay, so that's why the Ran changes the gears from par A. Par A means that I actually paid back the loan. And this, even if you're holding on to the money to pay back the loan. So the Ran says, no, he didn't say par A. He switches gears. He said, what he really said is, I gave you the money. I gave you the money. Okay? Okay. So the lender got angry. What are you talking about? You're such a liar. The Tavre and Kanya, and he broke the staff. And what happened? They stopped it, and the money spilled out. You see? Okay. So anyway, now the reason the Ran says the whole case sounds like I'm claiming I paid the whole thing, and you're denying I paid any of it. The reason the Ran says it translates it into a motive because why you wouldn't be holding on to a Sefer Torah. No, you could have a shvua by kofar. Sometimes there are drabanan shvuas or whatever, but it wouldn't be with the Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah would only be a shvua, right? So at least that's the Ran's assumption. So he tries to turn it into a motive mixus. Anyway, either way, bottom line is that the point is, okay, so you're not allowed to say that, give crazy interpretations to the words. Like this word means an answer. My little chips of wood, I call them dollar bills. Okay, that type of a thing you're never allowed to do. Okay, but what maybe you could interpret or whatever, it could be al datcha, is technically what you're saying is true, but it's not true in the way. Okay, so that's the question that when we might say that we have to explicitly say al das based in, is it could be if you make a shvur that's technically true in terms of the normal meaning of the words. It's still technically true, but not what we would have assumed. That maybe you would get away in general with, but in Basin we're saying you're not going to get away with that. It's not enough for it to be technically true. It has to be really true. It has to be really. But what the Gemara is saying is you're never allowed to do is give a crazy interpretation of the word. Is to say, oh, I meant my anthill. Oh, these chips of wood are what I'm calling dollar bills. Yes.
You know, it's so playful and interesting. But you could say, like I gave him 100 coins.
Right.
And everyone will understand.
Right.
What is $100, right? Bag of clams and then the other way. Right?
Right.
It's technically true, but it's not communicative.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it's so powerful.
Exactly.
Also, I wanted, like, it's like,
Yeah.
look at this language. It's open finish in the stuff of
Yeah.
In other words, there seems to be like
Interesting. Yeah. Cluster of words there. Yeah.
clustering of concern.
Right. Right. Nice. Okay. So the one says like this. Okay. So the one says that kapi lo avi dimishaba daiki dinavshe. Are you still telling me that people cannot basically take a shur and say it means what they say it means? About Tanya, we told Brisa. We found by Moshe. This is actually the end of that Mishnah by Shavuos, or a Brisa, a Brisa that's adding to that Mishnah on Shavuos about how Basin would make a person take a shur. Al das hamakom ve'al datenu, al das Basin. The same thing happened when Moshe caused Bnei Yisrael to take a shur. Barvas Moav. Amalem heavy yodim shelo al datchem ani mashpiatchem. Not based, you're saying, oh, we're going to take an oath, we're going to fulfill the Torah, and we won't be obeyed over the Zohar, etc. You don't get to interpret what those words mean. Okay, I get to interpret what those words mean. Okay, well, that's the point. So the same way Basin makes the person take an oath, al das ha-Basin, Moshe made Bnei Yisrael, that's what the Bryce is saying. Take an oath, al dato. Okay. Wait a minute, you'll see, okay? Ela al dati al das ha-makom, shenemar, v'lo itchem levadchem. Okay, so this is exactly the point. Here is a special case. If you want it to be al das ha-Basin and al das ha-makom, you have to say it like Basin said it and like Moshe said it. But if you don't say it, you are presumably you are allowed to say it means what you say it means. Okay, the default is you are allowed, and that's why Moshe had to say, no, you don't get to do it this time because I'm telling you what. Now, what below itchem levadchem means. So the way the Ron explains it is it doesn't just mean literally the people that aren't here, because that says later, Eit asher inenu po. So lo itchem levatchem means not what's in you. Lo itchem, not the thoughts that are in you alone is what this means. Okay, it's what normal people think it means. What I say it means, not what you're saying. I don't know. All right, it's a drop. My Amalu Moshe. So now, what would have been the scenario, Lisa? How might they have interpreted it that Moshe is trying to exclude, sort of, prevent? So, my Amalu Moshe, Lav Hachi Kamalu. This is what he says. Yoma Avidatun Mili or Avartun Mili is the word different here. So you'll transgress. Ritun Al Datenu. And you'll say, oh no, we didn't transgress because we only meant the oath based on how we understood it. Okay, Mishum Hachi Amalu Al Dati. Okay, and therefore he's saying, no, you don't get to interpret what it meant. I get it. It's what I think, what normal people think. Lafuki Minor, what's the specific thing that they would have claimed? My love, they maybe call, their little idol of the Baal, they call it God. So they say, yes, a Shavua, we will only worship God. Okay, of course, my God. They mean the Buddha, they mean the Zeus, or they mean whatever. Or I promise you, always to worship God. Of course, by God, I mean the God I believe in, not the God you believe in. Okay, anyway, so you see, therefore, you see again that normally you would be free to reinterpret, the words, and Moshe is preventing that. But the general rule is you are free to reinterpret the words. So the Gemara says no. The Gemara says, So it says, no. That actually is not a bad interpretation of the words. God could mean they're God. You use the word Eloha for the other God. For other God. Okay. So but that's the point. Meaning, yes. Normally, without saying like al das hamakom ve'al das habeistim, that's why then normally the words where are you entitled to interpret if the words are technically true, but not what we would assume they meant? Okay, that's where normally you say, well, I don't care. Technically, that's what I said, and that's technically accurate. End of story. Okay? But if I say al das based in, well, then I'm saying, or Moshe says al das, I'm saying I don't care that it's technically accurate. Technically, I worship God. My God, not your God, but I worship God. I don't care that it's technically. Thank you. That's a nice way of saying it. It has to be a shared understanding. It has to be a normal understanding. The words technically accurate is enough. Okay, so that means as a general rule, it might be enough to be technically accurate. But you cannot say something that gives a crazy interpretation that it's not even technically accurate. To say that, Oling Shrine is the name of my anthill, right. Okay, that is not an acceptable interpretation. Yes.
I said it based in would be different.
That's the point. Based in eliminates even the case that's technically accurate, right? It has to be the normal understanding. So now we're done. No, so we're done. We've answered. We basically said that, yes, it could be that you're not entitled to give a crazy meaning. You are entitled to get away with a technically accurate one, unless you're dealing with based in or Moshe Rabbeinu or whatever, somebody that is making it explicit, or just I make you take an oath to me, Michael, about anything. It doesn't have to be based. And I say, before you take the oath, I want to make it clear, it's going to be how those words are normally interpreted to be meant. And then that would be bound by that. But if I didn't say that, then you could make something that is technically accurate, even though it's not what we're assuming it means. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Now the Gemara just has a different question. It's going to wrap up, but we're done with our discussion. So the Gemara says, so why do you have to sort of say, Al Datiyan Mashbiachem by Moshe Rabbeinu? Isn't there a way you could say, the Gemara's going to have a fun little digression. Isn't there a way you could say some words which have no other possible interpretation? So rather than have to eliminate ways you might get out of it, I meant by God, I meant the Baal. Why didn't he just say something that there's no other way to interpret it? And then you wouldn't have to say, follows my interpretation. So exactly. So the Gemara says like this. So why just take a note that you'll do all the mitzvahs? So no. So the Gemara says, did I skip a line? Okay. Yes, I did. Mitzvahs that they'll fulfill good mitzvahs. No, mashma mitzvahs hamelech. All right, mitzvahs means commands that I'll receive from a king, any commands that my parents give me. That's how I would have interpreted it. Okay, you'll observe all the mitzvahs, so all includes God's commandment. No, so the Gemara says, mashma mitzvahs. Yeah, all the mitzvahs means they'll do tzitzis. Damamar, school of mitzvahs, connect all mitzvahs to Torah. All right. The Torah. Take a note that you'll observe the Torah. Torah achas. So it means like one Torah, meaning like one mitzvah, or we'll see it again. So we'll see there's a lot. We'll see the next line here. The Shabbat Yasson the Mekayim in Torah, all of laws. Mashma Torah, Mincha Torah, Chatas Torah, Hoshab. Fine, there are a lot of Torah, but they still doesn't cover anything. Okay, so the Gemara says, "The Shabbat Yasson the Mekayim in Torah u'mitzvos." Or, why don't you just say the Torah and the mitzvot, okay, which somehow, I don't know. So that's somehow by that context clearly means the mitzvahs of the Torah. I mean, that would have been a better way of saying it. So Torah mashma Torah, mitzvahs mashma mitzvahs hamelech. Okay, no, because we wouldn't interpret it as a phrase.
So
we interpret it as
Torah mitzvah.
Well, the Gemara's going to get. The Shabbat telling the Mekai Nisim Torah Kula, the entire Torah. Torah Kula mashma avodas kochanim. Fine, like sort of all the mitzvahs, the thing that represents the entire Torah. Come on, let's go to call a cover book, you the Torah, Kula. So if you reject Avodah Zarah, you're Mekayim the Torah. So if I'm Mekayim the Torah, it's enough to reject Avodah Zarah. But the Shabbat turning Mekayim is in Avodah Kocham the Torah, okay, Torah Kula. You'll observe Avodah Zarah and the entire Torah. Sheish Milas V'Shlosh Mitzvot, V'Shlosh Esrei Mitzvot. Just say you'll do all the Taryag Mitzvot. Okay, Ella, you're right. Maybe there would have been a way that you could have made a statement that there would have been no other interpretation, no other technically correct interpretation. Meaning you could say crazy thing. Oh yeah, I call my dog Taryag Mitzvah. I don't know. Okay, but at least there would be no other technically possible correct interpretation. Ella, fine, you're right. There maybe would have been a way. But Moshe Rabbeinu also did he didn't want to go ahead and go through this sugya and try to figure out exactly how to make a whole very, a statement like this. He just said, look, I'm not going to bother with any nonsense. It means what I say it means. End of story. Let's move on. Okay, now, let's move on. Okay, the more you see how the first is about. So now the other is, I saw a snake like the beam of an olive. So the Gemara says, whoa, is that really not true? That you can't have something like that? There was a snake. Was in the times of the Shvur Malka, and Rabbi Kleser Arvusa Tivna. They threw to him like 13 whatever it is baskets of grain. Ubali and then he swallowed them. I don't know exactly if that tells you how large it was, but anyway, there are huge snakes out there. Okay, right. Okay, stable. Oh, stable food. All right. Okay, that's a good point. Okay, so anyway, it's huge. So how much more Batara? Fine. What we're talking about is a snake. Tarf is basically interpreted to be like spotted, or the way the Ron sort of says it with like a scaled back. I don't know. Do all snakes? I'm not exactly sure what. Maybe your son.
Snakes have scales.
I know. How does it interpret it there in your Steinzog?
It's notched.
Notched. I don't know what that means. Anyway, it says Kula Nachash Mitra Tarfi. All of them. So that not snakes that are notched or spotted or whatever, those don't get to be this big. So what do you mean? All snakes are Mitra Tarfi or not? A Gavo Taruf Kamina. No. Notched on its back. That's not all snakes. The snakes that are notched on its back don't get to be this big. You're listening Taruf, so why not just say that? The Milsa Agavorcha Kamashwan is teaching you. The Torah is about Gabo Taruf. I don't know how it teaches you why that answers why I didn't say that the snake was Taruf. But since it's comparing it to a beam of a olive press, so a beam of an olive press also has like a notch in it, I guess, for the to attach the mechanism to it. So the why do I care about that? For business purposes, if I'm selling you a beam for an olive press, you can say, hey buddy, this is not a finished beam. It doesn't have the notches in it. So I would then have to put the notches in it because a beam of an olive press obviously means with the notches. So when I say the snake was like the beam, I'm referring to a snake with a notched back, and that's also what a beam of an olive press has. So if there was a business deal, I would have to fix it if it didn't have it. Okay. No, I said I saw a spotted snake or notched snake this big. So notched snakes don't get that big. Other things.
There are snakes that are very large that live in India.
I know. Okay.
Probably would be
Moving on. Nidrish Gago. So we have two categories now. Nidrish Ruzin, where it's clearly not intended. It's used to incentivize you or whatever, or everybody knows we're just sort of saying here we're not serious because we take the haggling. It's used to back up a statement, which is clearly a false statement, and I never really wanted to take it there. And now we get to category number 3, Nidrish Gago. Those made an error. So what does that mean? So, let's say you say, Neder, this bread is forbidden to me if I had if I had breakfast this morning. And you actually, when you were taking that oath, that Neder, you actually had forgotten. You actually thought that you hadn't had breakfast. Okay? So the halacha is the Neder isn't binding. Okay? You thought that, you thought that it was not going to be, you did not want it to be a binding Neder. You thought it wasn't going to be a binding Neder. You were taking this oath on a stipulation that you thought was, in your mind, completely false. And it turns out you were in error. The stipulation actually was true. Okay? So again, that's the case where bottom line is you didn't want it. You didn't want it. You had a misunderstanding in your head. You were shagah because it wasn't out of your hands, right? There was some degree of error or fault or whatever. But nevertheless, it wasn't what you were thinking. Okay, and then you realize, I had eaten. I thought I hadn't. Nevertheless, since when you took it, you thought for sure you hadn't eaten, so you never wanted it to be binding. It's not binding. Okay, or somehow if it's future oriented, this loaf will be forbidden to me. Konim this bread on me. If I will eat later today. So if I eat anything later today, then konam loaf of bread is on me. Okay, and then what did you do? The b'shachach, and you forgot I actually did eat something later that day. So that's interesting. Okay, when I took the oath, actually, I really did want it to be forbidden if I was going to eat something later that day, or I really was serious about it. I was prepared to make it forbidden. I was trying to set myself not to nosh. Okay, here would be a perfect example, right? Konam, all ice cream alai if I do any snacking later today. I'm really trying to keep to my diet. So I'm serious. I really mean that because I'm trying to prevent myself from snacking. And then there I am watching TV, and I'm not thinking, and I reach for a bag of potato chips, and I have one. And I said, oh my God, I totally forgot. I forgot about my neder. So now I'm buying all ice cream is forbidden to me. No, it's not. This is really shocking. Of everything, this is really shocking because here, when you took the vow, you were totally serious. When you did the action that triggered the vow, you had forgotten that action would trigger the vow. Therefore, since you had not remembered that snacking would have triggered the vow, then even though you did the act, you're not bound by the vow.
It's like that sugi Shabbos. Like you forgot it was Shabbos. You forgot that it was.
Yes. But the difference is, if I said, Conan, this bread is forbidden to me, and then I forgot my neder and I ate it, I transgressed my Isser B'Shogeg. Okay, so I don't get malchus, whatever, but I did an Isser B'Shogeg. It's like I accidentally ate a ham sandwich, right? Okay, you don't get malchus, but you did an Aveira. But here, the neder isn't binding. Okay, I said, Conan, ice cream a lie if I snack today, and then I snacked and I wasn't thinking about it, I wasn't remembering it, the vow does not kick in.
Because it's so interesting because the neder is human language that's one step removed from God Baruch Hu directly. I don't know, I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
It's like very interesting.
That's why I think the Nedarim is powerful. Is that basically it puts you in the position of God? You know,
right?
It's like your words make something forbidden. Right. But again, it's harder to understand how we know that this idea that when the triggering of it, when that's b'shogeg, it's not chal. Okay, because they're people shoving in the neder, and you would think that the act of triggering it isn't. You would say the act of snacking is not an act of taking a neder. It's not like when I snack, I have to say, "Hini muchon umezuma," and I eat this potato chip for the neder to be chal, right? This is not the act of making the neder chal, right? This is not the act of taking the neder. So you would think it doesn't matter what my frame of mind is, and all of a sudden we're saying that it does. Okay? So the Gemara says like this. If I remember the neder and I said, I don't care, I'm hungry. Forget about that. I'm hungry. Who cares? Right? Okay. Amar, Konim Ishi Nenisli. Now, here's another example of shkaga, which is a mistaken understanding, or like as opposed to the mistaken premise. Exactly. Thank you. Similar to Imakalti Vim Shatiti. So here it's similar. Okay, so let's take a look. Kona, my wife, cannot get benefit from me. First of all, problem is how can you say that if you have the shubba, but we won't focus on that. Shigambas Kisiva, she says to me, because she stole my wallet or she hit my son. Okay, that's what you're assuming. Now, you didn't say im. You said im, then okay. Venoda, she didn't steal the wallet. She didn't get the son. Now, if you say she's forbidden if, and she didn't do it, then you don't have to put that in this Mishnah. The condition wasn't met. You didn't say if. Say, I can't believe my wife hit my son. That's it. Konami feel. Okay, so if somebody says that, right? They didn't say if, but they made it clear what their understanding is, right? What their presumption is, and that vow is based on that presumption. So in that case, if the presumption is false and the vow is clearly based on the presumption, we say that the vow is not binding. Okay. Okay. You saw some people in your field, and there they were. They were just munching off of your fig tree. Okay. Amar, korban. All the figs are korban to you. And then they kept on eating. So now they're transgressing. Who knows? Anyway. Nimtzu avivachi. Okay. Whoops. That group. It was my father, my brother. Okay. Now, if it was just father and brother, so then we would say that's another case of shkagot. Like, I assumed they were strangers. Had I known that they were my father and my brother, I never would have done that. Now, that's different. Let's make it clear. That's different than a normal petach, right? A normal petach was, had I considered the fact that it would have been hard to keep it under these circumstances, had I considered the fact that my neighbors would have thought bad things about me, I never would have taken it. Here, the very core parts of the vow, who is it that you are making forbidden to eat? Somebody you never would have wanted to have made forbidden to eat this stuff. It's your father and your brother. Right, exactly. In that case, there was a mistake in the basic assumptions, the core assumptions, and therefore it's not binding. You don't need a Torah, it's not binding. Okay, now what if though some of the people you wouldn't have wanted as binding, and some you would? It was a group, including your father and brother and other people. Okay, and there were other people. So Beit Shammai says, Your father and your brother can eat from the figs, but not the other people. It's still binding for the other people. No, if it's not binding for your father and brother, it's not binding for anybody. This is the principle of neder shehutra miktzatzo hutar kulo. So it wasn't like two parts. That would be obvious. If you would say group A is usher and group B is usher, and group B was your father and brother, obviously group A would still be usher. It was said in one big statement, all of you are usher. There was a ta'us about some people in that. Does that mean the whole vow gets thrown out, or does that mean the part that's in toes doesn't get binded? Yes.
I don't understand this. It is forbidden by the Torah for me to walk into someone's property and take his fish.
Right.
So what does the Neder add to that?
Oh, really? You really don't understand it. So you don't know people that like the Isser Gezel doesn't mean anything to them. But God forbid this food should maybe not be like Chol Yisrael or have the world's best texture. You know, that would make a huge difference, right? That happens all the time.
Just to try to convince them
To stop eating.
to stop doing something that's not for anyway.
Exactly.
The second case, are like the workers that
Right.
he's hired, they can eat the fish
Right.
by the Torah law.
Right.
Can he forbid it?
Maybe not. That's the case about the Meshubad and who owns it and whether to what degree. That's an interesting Bava Metzia question about to what degree, you know, do they have a right? Does their right to eat translate into some type of a shibud?
Question.
Yeah, exactly. But it might not be the same. I mean, it's always a question like the thing that would prevent a neder would not be an obligation, would be an ownership issue. So the question would be how much the workers' rights translate into some degree of ownership.
I
Yes.
thought you could keep it, not carry extra with you
Right.
when you go into somebody's field.
No, not when you break into somebody's field, when you're working in somebody's field. Yeah.
Yeah, Oakland, not
Okay, so the Gemara says like this: Tana. Now you understand why some had a similar gift before by the Havai. The same way a neder shkaga is not binding, a shvur shkaga is not binding. What would be included in that? Now, obviously, you know, the Ran says obviously you could have cases like our Mishnah, right? The guy said, shavua, you know, that I won't eat the loaf of bread if I had breakfast this morning. And the same thing, you thought you had breakfast and you did it, right? Or, you know, shavua that this will be forbidden to me if I snack today. And then when you snack, you forgot about your shavua. So obviously it would be the parallel cases in the Mishnah. The Gemara gives an even more interesting case. Rav Kana and Rav Asi. Like when Rav Kana and Rav Asi would sometimes debate. One would say, they were arguing what their Rebbe Rav had said. One would say, a shvua, that Rav said this. I will take an oath that I heard Rav say this. No, you idiot! You totally missed him right. A shvua that he said this. That's what he didn't say. What you said this other thing. So the kochad now.
They're still usher to do that, right?
The kochad, that's why. Everyone thinks they're telling the truth. Okay, now, so basically, it's not a shvush sheker, right? They're not, they're not trying to lie. It's not a shvush shav. They're not saying anything which they're telling a shvur to back up their statement. Now, the point is, if they got it wrong, you could say, it's not a shvush shav. Certainly, you're saying it's taking a shvur to back up your statement that you want to prove it true. It could be a shvush sheker b'shogeg. So here's the question: is there such a thing as a shvush sheker b'shogeg? You take a shvua to back up your statement. You were telling the truth, and it turns out that you had misunderstood. You actually were in error. Okay, so that actually the Gemara says is that's not a shvua b'shogeg. That's not you're not over on shvua sheker b'shogeg. It's shvua b'shogeg actually not binding. Okay, which is amazing, right? So if you take a shvua, it means essentially it's interpreted like as I understand it. Even if you don't say those words, right? So you think that you are telling the truth and you take it, and it turns out that you're wrong. Okay, so then
wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's quite fascinating, right? Because you Dafka would have thought again, like this is not at all pashut that you would have translated the neder to the shvua. The whole point of the shvua is to back up the words, right? So you would have thought that I'm sorry, buddy. Before you take a shvua, you'd better be 100% correct. And if actually you're wrong, and you're still and you took a shvua to back up your words, you did something wrong. You took a shvua backing up a false statement. Maybe you're not mazed, you're shogeg, but if the point is to back up the words, my intuition would have been that here actually would have been a problem. Neder is different. Neder, the point is to make this object forbidden. So if I had some wrong assumptions and I was making, and I was based on some wrong presumptions or, misunderstandings, okay, the object didn't come forbidden. But you would think this is all about na'amei tvara. And nevertheless, the chiddush of this Gemara is that if you took a shvua believing you were telling the truth and you were in error, then the shvua itself is not binding. Okay, so it's pretty amazing Gemara. Okay, about that. So let's take a look as the Gemara continues. Now the question here is, I guess what's not explicit is, the issue about shvua shkagos mutarot, and it's like I said before. Are we saying that it's mutar to take the shvua? Are we saying the shvua does not make the food forbidden? If you take a look at the Ran, take a look at 4 lines down in the medium lines of the Ran, where the Ran says like this. The Gemara says like this, or let's say 3 lines down in the beginning, in the medium lines of the Ran. He says, everyone is telling you, saying, buddy, you're making a mistake. So you might think if I'm telling you you're making a mistake, that makes you even more at fault. You should have taken even more care. And the one that was wrong is more to blame. So he heard his friend was making sure about the exact opposite. Okay? I would have thought I didn't care what the other guy was saying, even though he was telling me I was wrong, and I still went to make a shua. I really should have been more careful. And therefore, I would have said, Lav shkaga. It's not a real shkaga. There's more of a sense of real fault here. The ikalabe isser peirot, you asurim. And if I said, Shavua, if Rav didn't say this, then the food will be forbidden to me. So maybe the food would be forbidden. Kamash Malan, that it's not. So again, notice what we're happening here. There's always 2 questions by a shvuah, right? One is, did I do an isser by taking the shvuah? Was it a shvuah shav, a shvuah sheker? The other is, does it affect the status of fruit? If I say a shvuah, I won't eat fruit. Does it make it forbidden? So what the Ran is saying is, if I say shvuah, if Rav didn't say this, let the fruit be forbidden, that maybe at the end of the day, the fruit isn't forbidden. Okay? That, I think, is less of a chiddush, because I thought Rav did say it, I was making a mistake, etc. The food isn't forbidden. I still think that's less of a chiddush than if I'm saying Shavua that Rav said this, and I'm wrong, that actually I didn't even take a shvua check yet, right? You understand the difference? The first case is I'm focusing on making the food forbidden. The second case is I'm directly backing up my statement. All right, and the simple sense of the Gemara is even if I'm just directly backing up my statement, and that's the whole point of a shvua, nevertheless.
So the Ran said you were making this or not?
He's not clear about that. But the Ran, to make it parallel to the Nedarim, focuses on the question of whether the fruit would be forbidden. He would say if you took a shvua to make fruit forbidden, unless X and Y and Z happened, and you were in error about whether X, Y, and Z had happened, then it's actually not forbidden. Okay, but my question is, but let's say you took a shvua that X, Y, and Z happened, and you're making a mistake. The simple sense of this Gemara is also you didn't do anything wrong. But again, to me, that's
anything wrong.
Yeah, but anyways, so all I'm saying is that to me that's a bigger chiddush. If it was about backing up your words, it might not be enough that you thought you were telling the truth, right? All right, let's take a look now as the Gemara continues. Okay. Rasan Ochlim, Tnan. So you saw them eating. Tnan Hasa. Posting b'Shabbat is a Yomi Tov. So if somebody took an oath never to drink wine, or let's say, I don't know, then, and he went for a petah, and you said, had you realized that you were preventing yourself from drinking wine, had you stopped to think that also meant you wouldn't be able to drink wine on Shabbos and Yom Tov, would you still have taken it? Said, you know what, Taka, you're right. If I stopped to think about that, I wouldn't have taken the never. And then we say, okay, fine, so we can get you out of your never. That's a petah.
Well, or like maybe the Beis Shammai thing, just those days.
Well, okay, that's what we're going to discuss. Now, that is not a, that is not a shkago. It's not like the father where it says, this needs a petah. Why is it different? Because in the case with the father and the brothers being part of the group, I didn't think they were part of the group in the first place, right? Obviously, I know that not year includes Shabbos. I just wasn't paying attention to it, right? I wasn't thinking it through. So that's the difference. Obviously, it includes Shabbos. I just didn't think it through. That requires a petach, okay? So one requires a petach, the other automatically goes away. But in both cases, it doesn't apply to the shot to a piece of the shot. And the question is, what effect does it have to the rest of the shot? Okay, and that's what we're looking at. Whether it's because of the shkaga, whether it's because of the petach, a piece of the shua is not included. What about the rest of it? I'm next, I skip saying shua because we of the previous part. A piece of the neder is not included. What about the rest of the neder? Okay, so so what's the story? Hayomi that used to say, excuse me, you used to say, Osam Yami Mutarim, Bashar Kol Yami Masurim. Okay, that gets you out of that piece, not about the rest of the neder. Until Rabbi Akiva came and taught, neder shooter miksato hutar kulo. If some of it goes away, it all goes away. Okay, so now how does this fit into Beit Hillel Beit Shammai, or like what are the parameters of hutar miksato hutar kulo? That sounds like it's exactly the debate of Beit Hillel Beit Shammai. So let's see what the Gemara says. Amar Rabba. T'chulei alma, everybody, Beit Hillel Beit Shammai. Kol echad amar, ilu hayiti yodea she'aba beinichem, hayiti omer kuchem asurim chutz ve'aba. Had I realized that Dad was there among you, I would have said you're all forbidden except Dad. I didn't say the except Dad because I didn't really see who was there. T'chulei asurim. Even Beit Hillel, va'aviv mutar. Even Beit Hillel would agree that only the father is excluded. Why? Because the ta'ut was, I didn't add the words except for Dad. That was my mistake. Had I known, I would have said the words except for Dad. But since I would have still kept the kulchem, the whole statement wasn't in error. I still would have said kulchem. I just would have added except for Dad. So since the whole statement isn't in error, everybody agrees that the rest of the statement that the rest of the statement remains fine. Lo nechleku, the debate of Beit Hillel Beit Shammai is, and I realized Dad was there. I would have said, you guys on the right, you're forbidden. My dad, he's okay. I would have said a different statement. I wouldn't even wanted it to sound, I would not have even started by saying Kulchem Asurim. I would have been very clear from the outset I was not including my father in the group. Okay, so if that was the case, say not the error was, it's the same result. Yeah. But the point is, I would never have said that statement. I would never have gotten those words Kulchem Asurim out of my mouth. And therefore, since I would never have gotten said that statement at all, until it's prepared to say, so the whole neder isn't calm. You would have said a completely different statement. Okay, so that's the debate of Beit Hillel Beit Shammai. When you said you would have said a completely different statement. No, one is it would have been the same statement with a qualifier, and then everybody agrees, so then we'll just apply the qualifier, okay, because it wouldn't affect the rest of the statement. But if you would have said a completely different statement, then Beit Hillel says, fine, then we throw out the entire neder. That's Rabbi's approach. Yeah, which is exactly why you would have made a very different statement, which is why this statement would have not been the statement you would have made, and therefore the whole thing is thrown out. Okay, but Rava, now Rava is the same difference, but he just changes where they're debating. Here he just says that, yes, obviously, what you would have said a completely different statement, that's better. It's so much better that even Beit Shammai would have agreed. Everybody says that you said that if you say, look, I realized Dad was there, I would never use the word kulchem. I would have said, you guys on the right are forbidden, Dad, you're okay. If that's true, you would have said a completely different statement that even Beit Shammai agrees, huch miksaso huch kula. You would have said something completely different. You wouldn't have said this neder at all, and therefore it's not chal at all. Kula mutar. Everybody agrees that the neder isn't chal at all. Lo nechleku, the whole debate, is Elabomer Ilo Yit Yodeh Shabbat Beinechem Yitom Akuchem Asurim Chutz Me'aba. That I would have added a qualifier. So I would have kept the basic language and added a qualifier. In that case, Beit Shammai says, no, he doesn't reverse it. He just says that everybody agrees that the case when you would have said a completely different statement is better. Okay? The first approach says that case is where the machlokas is. Right. And the case is, no. That case, even Beit Shammai, that's so much better that even Beit Shammai agrees.
Right, so the second case, the first year, so the second case was Machlokas.
Yeah, but it's not reversed.
And the second case, the first part.
Michael, let me finish. Okay. Lo nechleku ela ba'omer ila yitiyodei sha'aba b'nechem yitomer kuchem asurim chutz me'aba. They debate when he says, had I realized that, I would have added a qualifier. Beit Shammai savi lakra. Now, okay, you know what? We're going to stop here. So the question is, then, and I'll just end with this and we'll pick up with this tomorrow, right? It's basically, you have the following. You said, Kulchem Asurim. Yeah, I go, yes, question, and then you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're saying the same thing, but I'm just.
You say Kulchem Asurim. So one statement is, you said Kulchem Asurim Chutz, which is basically the same thing, and the other is Ploni Uploni, which is a completely different one. Okay? So, Rabbi says, we have Rabba and Rava. Right? Rabbi says that in this case is where it is. Which one is Rabba? You know,
Rabbi's the first.
I know Rabbi's the first. What does he say? So he says in this case, since you would have maintained the Kulchem Asurim, everybody says it's Asur, and here it's a machlokes. And here it's a machlokes, because here, since it would have been a different statement, that's when you could say huta miksas or huta kulo. And Rava says, here it's a machlokes, here everybody says mutter. So it's not splitting it, right? All right, we'll go over this again tomorrow.